God's plan. Once upon a time, a ship was caught in a fierce storm while sailing across the sea. Waves crashed violently against the vessel, and soon the ship was torn apart. All of the passengers were lost to the deep waters except for one man. By some miracle, the man survived. After being tossed by the waves for hours, he finally washed ashore on a deserted island. When he regained consciousness, the man looked around, dazed and confused. Realizing he was all alone, he dropped to his knees and prayed, "Oh God, please help me. Send someone to rescue me." Days passed, but no help arrived. The man spent his nights shivering on the cold sand, sleeping under the stars. Every morning he repeated his prayer, but each day ended the same, with silence. As time passed, the man slowly began to accept his fate. He gathered wood and grass and built a small hut to shelter himself. From the wreckage of the ship, he salvaged whatever he could find and stored it in his little hut. He sustained himself by eating coconuts and fishing along the shore. Though he missed his old life, the man adjusted to the rhythms of the island. His hut became his sanctuary, the only piece of comfort in his isolated world. One day, after lighting a small fire near his hut, the man left to search for food. When he returned, he was met with a heartbreaking sight. His hut was engulfed in flames. The only shelter he had, the only thing that gave him hope, was being consumed by fire. He felt devastated. Overcome with frustration and despair, he raised his fists to the sky and shouted, "Oh God, why have you done this to me? I asked for help, and instead, you took away the only thing I had left. You are so cruel." That night, the man slept on the beach, his heart heavy with disappointment. He felt utterly abandoned, but early the next morning, he was startled awake by a loud sound. Rubbing his eyes, he looked toward the horizon and couldn't believe what he saw. A ship had anchored just off the shore, and a group of sailors was rowing toward him. The man's heart leapt with joy. Help had finally arrived. When he boarded the ship, he eagerly asked the captain, "How did you know I was stranded here on this deserted island?" The captain smiled and replied, "We saw the fire signal you sent from the island. It was bright and clear, so we knew someone was in need of help." The man was puzzled at first. "But I didn't send any fire signal," he said, confused. Then, all at once, it dawned on him. The fire signal the captain spoke of was the very fire that had destroyed his hut. Fire he had cursed in his anger and frustration was actually the very thing that saved him. In that moment, the man understood that sometimes what seems like a disaster is actually part of a greater plan. God had used the burning hut to signal his rescue. He realized that God's plan for him had been bigger and better than anything he could have imagined for himself. The man smiled and began to thank God, grateful for the unexpected way in which his prayers were answered. This story reminds us that in life, things don't always go as we plan. When challenges come our way, it's easy to lose faith and feel hopeless. But even in the darkest moments, we must remember that God has a purpose for us. What may seem like a setback could be a part of a larger, more beautiful plan. So keep the faith, persevere, and trust that God's plan for you is bigger, bolder, and better than you can imagine. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Keep your faith.